Hello everyone, welcome back to all of you in the Smelly Army. So today we're going to be having a look at some of my favourite written reviewers. So of course YouTube videos are great for fragrance reviews, but the advantage of written reviews is that they can say things a little bit more succinctly with the written word, generally speaking. So it takes less time normally to get the message across when they do a few paragraphs. Often that's all you need to know about a fragrance. Of course, fragrances are smells. We can't show them to you on the screen. So writing about them really makes just as much sense as making a video. And there's not that much visually really that we can give you that helps you understand the fragrance. Of course, that's not to say that you shouldn't watch fantastic review channels, including my own, because of course there are many things we can do on a YouTube channel that the written reviewers can't. So for example, we can show you the bottles. Well, they can put pictures in their blogs, and so they can show you the bottle, but we can, when we show you the bottle, the liquid moves around like that. And that's not just it. There's so many other things we can do that you couldn't just write. So we can put kind of elevator music in the background. You don't get that in a written review, and well, YouTube reviews are just as good as the people who write, because oh shit. Welcome back. So yes, as I said in the intro there's a lot of things about written reviews, and I'm going to mention a podcast as well that can be just as good and in some ways better than just watching YouTube reviews. So certainly I would encourage people to watch both. I enjoy doing the videos, I enjoy watching a lot of the videos. It's a different medium. We all like to see a person talking. It's a different kind of reaction that you can see on their face about the smells, and it's that can be nice. You can put them on as you're doing other things, whereas if you read something, you've got to give it your full attention, and in this modern world, for some of us, that can be really difficult. Oh, and by the way, by sheer coincidence, I've just started my own blog where I'm writing written fragrance reviews, so you can check out the link for that one in the description. Please go along and read some of the reviews. There's about 4 on there already, and let me know what you think. My fragrant friend Claire from the Smurfygurly channel has also started one, and I'll put the link to that in the description too. Written reviews and one podcast I'm going to mention. So I'm going to talk about some of my favourite bloggers, or in one case a Basenotes reviewer that I really like, and there's one really great podcast that I enjoy. A quick sort of apology here. I did a video about my favourite fragrance reviewers recently, and they were all men. I do love some female reviewers, and I'm going to do a video on them soon. And here it just so happens everyone I'm mentioning is a man again, and I'm really sorry about that, but these are just the people I've discovered so far. Of course, I'm mainly interested in men's fragrances, so maybe that's why I've gravitated towards male reviewers who tend to cover those type of scents. But please let me know some great written reviewers on the female side of things, but preferably ones who do a little bit of, or at least some of their content on men's fragrances, because that's what me and a lot of my viewers are mainly interested in. Okay, so let's get stuck into it with enough of me waffling on. So the first one, no particular order, one of my real favourite blogs actually is from Pierre Goss. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, so you will see how it's written on the screen there. He's a really, really good reviewer. He writes extremely well about men's fragrances of all kinds. Some modern ones, he's got a little bit of a leaning towards retro and vintage, I think it's fair to say, and he's very, very good at expressing his opinions. He does quite often have some strong opinions, which is great and fun in a review, and his knowledge of the fragrances is excellent. He must have experienced and have a really big collection of fragrances. So one of the articles that really turned me on to this blog spot was his one on dihydromercenol, which is a chemical, an ingredient used in a lot of fragrances, most famously maybe Creed's Green Irish Tweed, and it's also in Cool Water. And I didn't know that it started off way earlier than that, right back in the 70s. And he mentioned Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, a real classic from 1973, as one of the first fragrances to use this. It was a really, really educational, well written, not too waffling, didn't go on hours and hours, just a few minutes read. But I learned so much from that, and more than I probably learn in the average week of watching top 10 spring scents on YouTube. So it was really, really nice to read that one. Another one that I liked by him, he did a good one on Acqua di Parma Colonia, and he does quite a lot on the Pinot Clubman aftershave range. If you're into shaving or aftershaves a bit on the side, as well as our sort of mainstream fragrances. Really, really good blog, does modern fragrances too, and some opinionated articles. He did one about Creed Viking a way back that you can find on there, where he sort of had a little bit of a critique of the House of Creed, which I found, I didn't necessarily agree with everything he said, but I found it really informative and thought-provoking. So from Pyrgos, well worth checking out. Moving on then, the next person I'm going to talk about is the Candy Perfume Boy. So his blog is called Candy Perfume Boy, and the real name is Thomas Dunkley. This is a UK-based writer, and I think he's a little bit of an industry insider. He's a professional. I'm not sure exactly what his links to the industry are, but he certainly seems to do fragrance for a living. I think he's got a YouTube channel, so I'll try and put the link to that, but his main thing is his written word, and just seems to have really in-depth knowledge of fragrances and a very different take to what we get in the YouTube reviews. He does equal amounts on male and female fragrances, and one that I was reading, it's a few years old actually, but it was great and enjoyable for me to read up his review on Sartorial from when it first came out from Penhaligon's, and just gave me suddenly, or after already watching everything on YouTube, in that couple of minutes reading his review on it, I felt that I had a new outlook on the fragrance. And just often with that written word, because people are choosing their words more carefully, they don't have a chance to just say and and repeat themselves. They really boil things down and put things in a perfectly framed way that we're probably not going to manage when we're doing an off-the-cuff YouTube video. And his Sartorial review I really enjoyed, and he also did one that I was reading the other day on what he takes to the gym with him, and he likes to wear Angel Men Ultra Zest as his gym fragrance, which was quite a bold but sort of fresh orange creamsicle kind of scent. So really enjoy his written work, and he's going to be mentioned again in connection with the podcast, but I'll come back to that. Moving on from him then, we've got Colin Maillard. I think that's how you pronounce it when it's spelt that way, but I could be wrong. This is not a blog exactly, it's a Basenotes reviewer, one of the most liked ones on Basenotes. I really enjoy his often rather acerbic wit and quite often negative reviews, and one that I really have often found that I remember whenever I just sort of spoiled this scent for me in a way, is what he said about YSL's La Nuit de l'Homme when he reviewed that one. So he said, La Nuit de who? This is La Nuit de la 12 years old sipping Diet Coke and smoking puff cigarettes. A disappointing, juvenile, cheap lavender cardamom woody tobacco club scent. If ladies love this, then either I don't understand a thing about women or we disagree on the concept of ladies. So it's those kind of reviews that make him very entertaining, and he does of course have positive reviews. Mainly seems to like, in some cases, the older classics like Givenchy Gentleman and Azaro Prom, gave very good reviews of those. So you might not agree with, many men out there watching fragrance reviews will get more success with La Nuit de l'Homme by a long way than things like Givenchy Gentleman. But he's, there are modern scents he likes too. Opinionated, writes really well, and seems to have a huge breadth of knowledge. All the references to other fragrances show he's tried tons, and he's got his own ideas, and just it's completely different to anything you'll see on YouTube. So I really enjoy his stuff. Moving on then, Thomas Dunkley is going to feature here again because this is my favourite fragrance podcast, and this is called Fume Chat. So this is Thomas Dunkley with Nick Gilbert, another writer and fragrance industry person from the UK, and they have a really, really entertaining and enjoyable podcast called Fume Chat, which comes out roughly about once every couple of weeks. Now and again you might have a little gap where they don't do one for a while, but they always come back, and they cover all kinds of things on that. A lot of the time they'll do what are the recent releases, and they'll just do a roundup of recent releases and critique them, and they're smelling them on camera, but on the microphone. They've also had Katie Puckrick on there. They'll do things maybe where they highlight one house, so they'll do the favourites from L'Artisan Parfumaire, I think they did, or favourite Bertrand Duchefort fragrances. So that, interesting, nice content. Do a lot of niche stuff, but the mainstream releases are talked about too. And they did a really good one of their last couple of podcasts was the top 6 mainstream masculine fragrances, so essentially designer fragrances, and it actually prompted me to go out and buy one that I'm never quite sure if I like, but as a reviewer I've got to have it in my collection, and that's Amen from Thierry Mugler, and both of them really like that. They're pretty big. I think particularly Thomas Dunkley is a big Mugler fan, and they did make a strong case for this kind of gourmand tarry patchouli fragrance from 1996, I think, which is rightfully considered a very influential and classic scent, but one I was never quite sure of. But they convinced me when I saw a good deal online that I need it in my collection, if only as a reference, but maybe I'll grow to like it more. Last but not least then, and this is another kind of one with a retro theme. This is a brilliant blog, and it's called Raiders of the Lost Scent. This mainly deals with lost, well, not lost, maybe discontinued fragrances, or fragrances where they've been reformulated and people perhaps want to understand, what do I need to look for if I want to get vintage Fahrenheit? They did a brilliant article on Fahrenheit, all the different bottle designs and how it's changed, and you can really pinpoint what year. So I know my little 30ml here is from somewhere in the early 2000s, and it should be quite a bit stronger and more petroleum heavy than today's version. So it's a little bit esoteric. You've got to be into that world of vintage fragrances or old reformulations and all that kind of stuff. They do some men's and women's on there, has some guest contributors on there, helped me to find out about Cappucci Porom, one of my classic cheapies that I really like, citrus cologne from Italy. And there's an in-depth one on Cacharel pour l'Homme, and it helped me to be able to identify this vintage bottle on eBay with the thing around the word and a sort of duck picture there that you don't get on the modern one, and allowed me to get a vintage bottle for a really good price. So really good if you're into the vintage stuff. They also, it's not all really old ones, because they also did a good one on La Nuit de l'Homme, different variations over the years of the smell of that one since it was released in 2009. So there were some of my favourite bloggers and a podcast. I think Manny from Cascade Scents did have a Fragcast podcast, but I don't think that's active anymore. Otherwise I would have included that, but if you can find the old archives, that's good too. So let me know any written stuff online that we should all be checking out, or any podcasts or any other mediums other than YouTube where you watch and enjoy or read fragrance reviews. I need to learn more, but those are some of my favourites at the moment. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Oh, I nearly forgot to say, I have my own blog now where I'm doing some written reviews. I'm going to be doing about 1 or 2 a week, and I'm hoping that that's going to grow and become popular. So I'll put the link down there. I think there's about 4 reviews that I've done so far, and it won't tie in with what I'm doing on YouTube. It'll just be separate stuff. So let me know what you think. As ever, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. See you next time. Bye-bye.